So let's talk a little bit about routing optimization. So if we talk about who needs routing optimization, there's really kind of a couple of different uses for it within an organization. If we start with, we talk about the companies that need it for daily route optimization. So these are your typical company that says, I'm going to take orders all day long. At 5 o'clock this afternoon, I'm going to have an order cut off. I want to be able to take those orders. Now I've got 250 orders going to all these different places, and what I want to be able to do is take that information and optimize it, build the trips or build the routes, and then be able to dispatch that out to send it both to the WMS so that orders can be picked, and then I want to be able to manage the transportation aspect of that. So in daily routing optimization, that's primarily people who, the customers or the deliveries change a lot on a daily basis. You might be going to a static customer base, but you never know who's going to order from day to day or how much they're going to order, which allows, if you think about what they're doing today, they're taking that as tickets that they're printing out of your system. They're manually sorting them into piles, and they're going through a routing exercise. People who use daily routing optimization, typically there's too much fluctuation for static routes. If you kind of look at the next level, it's that, I might be able to use the system both for strategic and tactical planning. So maybe I use it for big creation, what-if analysis, looking at different ways of setting up your network. What if I put a location in, I'm shipping out of Dallas, maybe I should put a cross-dock location in Houston, and I want to be able to model that out. So, or maybe I'm going to get I'm bidding on a new chain of stores, and I want to see what's the impact going to be to my distribution costs if I take those on, because I need to figure that into my pricing model. So that people can use the software, companies can use the software to solve those type of business problems as well. Fixed route design. So if you think about organizations that fundamentally run more of on a static schedule, so we're talking about the actual customers that are going to order on a given day are fundamentally the same. They're fairly predictable order patterns. If we're going to have large fluctuations, then we run into issues with, I have to basically automatically set the capacity down to maybe only 80%. Otherwise, if I get large volume fluctuations on a given day and I'm running fixed routes every day, 50% of my routes don't fit. So in order to fit this fixed route design methodology for routing, we need to be able to have fairly static customer base and predictable order patterns. There's many times that the software will be utilized in a combination to do the fixed route design, and then on a daily basis use the software to do fixed route management. So if you use the software and you go through and you build a set of fixed routes, once those set of fixed routes are built and designed, on a daily basis the orders would pre-populate down to those routes. Now, because we have those changes, this order doesn't fit, they ordered a bunch more than we planned on, so that had two effects. First of all, their load got blown out, plus we've got the situation that we know that it takes a certain amount of time to unload, so based on the actual amount of product that they ordered, so that could extend how long it's going to take to make the delivery, so now the missing time windows at other stores. So they need a mechanism to be able to manually make changes, or possibly in an automated fashion resolve all those issues on a daily basis. So the software can be used to not only develop that fixed route set, but also on a daily basis, the orders download, they populate on their fixed routes, and then the users can have the system as not only a calculator, but also it'll do some optimization to move some stuff around to try to make everything fit, and with the goal of minimizing the overall cost of doing that. If we talk a little about how does it actually work, so what is it really looking at? We kind of start with, who requires that service or delivery? What customers are ordering today? What are we going to deliver? So it could be cases, cube, pallets, pieces, weight, units, gallons. Ultimately, when we get there, how much are we going to deliver? So I have an order for a specific amount of product that needs to be delivered or possibly picked up. When do I need to be there? So if you talk about in the food business, time windows are very crucial. You've got you got to be there between 8 and 11 or 1 to 4. It could be that if we're routing on a multi-day environment, we could be routing in a situation where there's dates. So the earliest delivery date is the 12th, the latest delivery date is 15th, and we need to take that into consideration. We need to know where the customer's located. So where are they located, physically in space, so in space and time. So if we've got a customer out here, we need to know where all of our customers are located. We need to tie that to the road network. The system automatically does that. And then are there any special delivery restrictions? So how must it be delivered? Is there special driver, special equipment, requires a lift gate? Could be some type of bulk product like that says we can't mix certain products with other products. So there's a lot of different things that could come into an equation in terms of how the product gets delivered as well. So we've got this set of demand or set of orders that we need to optimize with all these set of rules. We also have all these operational considerations. So if it's private fleet, we've got work rules. So what's the earliest time I can start? What's the latest time I can return? So, it's physically not ready to dispatch until 8 p.m. at night. What's the max work time, max drive time? What's our DOT rules that are given to us by the FMSCA? What's the capacities of my trucks? Are there any special equipment or skill set considerations on those? So really what the software is doing is it's optimizing. So subject to all these deliveries that need to be made and the associated constraints on those and the fleet that I have available, the goal is to look at all these constraints and fundamentally minimize cost. If we talk about the type of companies that are going to use this type of technology, you get into dedicated logistics and retail chains, direct store delivery, food and snack foods, could be bulk product. Fundamentally, the question to ask is the end delivery multi-stop? So from a qualification, I actually have a slide on this a little bit later, but from a qualification perspective, we're looking for probably greater than 10 routes or trips a day, and each of them needs to be multi-stop. So, 3, 4 stops minimum in order for the optimization to really be able to maximize the amount of value it can provide over what they would do manually. So anything that's in final mile, direct store delivery, it could be manufacturer to endpoint, but again, the key is it needs to be multi-stop. We talk about why do people actually use it as opposed to manually sorting these tickets. Obviously, you can see with all the things it's looking at, there's a tremendous opportunity to improve customer service. So we can actually generate a route schedule, and you're going to see that when I do a demo in a moment. We're going to be able to manage that when we build the routes, we know that we built the routes feasible, so it's a good route. It's a route that can be ran within the time allotment that we've provided, and we can hit the customer service requirements by running the routes the way the system generates them. If we talk about time, to give some speed, 100 stops, I think the example I've got here today is maybe 150 stops, and I gave it 15 trucks. It solves that in about a minute, somewhere in that time frame. So to give you an idea for speed, imagine if I handed you 150 printed tickets and said, I need you to build these routes for tomorrow. And you've got to figure out, you got to be thinking about what the time windows are and the capacity of the truck and all the various things that you would have to consider when you're putting those routes together. There's no possible way to be able to solve that in the amount of time that would be needed in order to get those tickets out to the floor so they could start picking. The system can optimize that in literally a matter of a minute. In many cases, especially in a large distributed environment, we'll see one of the things that keeps people from being able to achieve their potential is simply that there's a phenomenal amount of dependence on local knowledge. Again, if I handed you 150 tickets and asked you to do the sorting of them yourselves, you better be very familiar with not only the customer base, but the location of all the customers, all the intricacies of those customers and what their expectations are. Once you get that information in the system actually has the capability to build and optimize those set of routes based on all those constraints without physically having the end user be knowledgeable of every one of those small details. So we see a lot of times that in a larger, multi-DC environment, you'll see that we can go dispatch where they're currently dispatching at each individual location. They can actually consolidate that, bring that back, and do centralized routing. So, organizations like I mentioned Kellogg's earlier. Kellogg's is running 6 people that actually work in the central routing center doing 1,200 routes a day. So they're basically centralized all that as opposed to having the 48 DCs each do their own routing. And then finally, excellent return on investment. Typical savings of 10 to 20%, which the description that I gave previously about all the complexities of the problem, it's obviously pretty simple to see that there's a great opportunity for savings by having a system be able to do this when you take into consideration all the variables that have to be looked at to build that type of problem out. So if we talk about the steps, we start with routing. So we said, okay, here's all my business for tomorrow. I need to build and optimize routes. The second piece of that is we're going to take that information, we're going to send it back to Epicor. Now we've got the actual task of execution. So I've got my orders in the system, everything's ready to go, but I want to have some visibility, some interaction that says, now enterprise-wide, I want to know what's my schedule look like. I want to integrate it with my mobile comm so that I know that the information from the GPS is on the trucks. I'll be able to dispatch the route. I'll be able to get data collected from the device, transmit that back, have it updating the routes in real time, reforecasting my ETAs, those type of things. We have a product called DR Track, which goes hand in hand with the routing, which is an optional module that does dispatching as well. So it's a web-based application. You have the ability to do schedule visibility, so anybody within the enterprise has the ability to go in and see the schedule, see the estimated arrival times, and then see everything update throughout the day, and then we can control what they get to see and do based upon their user rights and permissions. We try to be agnostic for the most part for device, so you'll see there's a lot of different opportunities for different devices. I look at them as there's kind of three phases. There's the GPS only, so imagine a black box that mounts underneath the seat. Next step up would be maybe a mobile phone, so we have the ability to physically dispatch to their mobile phone. They can enter data, they can take pictures, they can scan a barcode, they can do signature capture. Everything is managed right on the mobile phone. That information is transmitted in real time back to the website, and they have the ability to have all that data in real time, again, visibility throughout the enterprise. And then at the top end, when you really get into the commercial trucking side, they typically go for one of the systems that are more robust enterprise level truck computing solutions, which we do offer those as well. And those solutions, they do everything aforementioned, as well as they'll manage the driver's hours of service with electronic logging, digital vehicle inspection reports, and all types of different telematics data for fast starts, quick deceleration, quick cornering, things like that, fuel mileage per gallon, those type of things. So in a DR Track role, what that's going to do is basically take that route plan. It's going to be providing in real time. We can send emails, we can send text message alerts. We basically have visual displays to be able to show anybody in the organization current status of where every trip is, where it is in relation to where it's supposed to be, and provide the appropriate notifications for action to be taken in real time, as well as all the back-end reporting. Once we've got that data, then we have the ability to say by actual versus planned, what did my route cost versus what the gross margin of the product I had on it, so all your account history, as well as driver performance information. With that, I'm going to get into a product demonstration, and I want to start with Direct Route. And as an overview, we'll talk about how the product actually works, looks, and the visual representation of the information on the screen. So if I start, what you're looking at here, this is kind of a day in the life. So I've got a distribution center in Dallas, Texas, and I've got all the orders that I needed to ship for the particular day. So think of this as, it's 5 o'clock at night, here's all the orders for tomorrow, what's the best way to route them? So what the software's done is it's basically taking all this information. You see in this case it was 133 stops. It came back and said, built and optimized. It says you're going to need 11 trips or 11 routes for tomorrow. Now if we take a look just to get you oriented on the screen, you see I've got my terminal, I've got my stops 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 for Route 1. So I have the ability to see the route on the map, what the stops are, and I can also see all the other stops. So if I lock that on screen, now I can see both Route 1 and Route 2. If I look down below, I can see the details of the route. So you can see Route 1 is 201.1 miles. It's 9.66 hours. There's your start and end time. The cube, the number of pallets. You can see it's got $1,317 of gross margin. The route costs $368, and it's got 10 stops. I've got total miles, total hours, total cube, what all my averages are. You can see my total cost, my average cost per route, as well as all my solution statistics. So my average stops per route is 12. My average hours per route is 8.44. My average cost per stop is $19.50. And if I want to zoom down and actually drill in on a specific route, I can see the details. So you can see this route. So for each one of these routes, it generated a detailed stop-by-stop manifest. So I leave at 4:55. That's what time I start my day. I'm going to depart at 5:10 because I have to have 15 minutes of pre-trip to inspect the vehicle. I drive 37.8 miles to the first stop. I get there at 6 a.m. I'm there for 23 minutes. I delivered 47 cube. I drive 2.1 miles to the next stop. I get there at 6:31. I'm there till 6:58. If you look on the right, this is a Gantt chart that represents what my time windows are for each stop and what time I'm arriving. So the blue is physically what time you're arriving. The green bar is your open and close time. If I look at stop number 7, you see it's green up to a point and then it goes yellow. The difference being that we have the ability to say, I've got a time window, and if I'll look at this particular account, I can look over here. This has a time window of 6 to 11 Monday through Friday. So we actually have a time window that says this is when the delivery needs to be made. But if I scroll down, I see I also have a late buffer. What the buffer does is it defines things like I want to be there between 6 and 11, but I could be as much as 2 hours late, but I want to charge a penalty cost of $10 an hour for not making there on time. So the system is physically optimizing, making a decision of whether or not it's cheaper for you to drive out a route. If I've got to drive 20 miles out a route to get there by 11, then it's probably cheaper to get there at 11:30. It's making a decision of what time it should get there based upon the constraints that you put in. From a user's perspective, if I wanted to make any changes, I can simply point and click. You can see it updates the route. It tells me I'm going to miss time windows. So if I look at this carnival, you see it's turned red. I'm getting there at 12:31. It actually shows me arriving outside the time window. So if I look at this particular account, you see the time window was 6 to 11. I'm sorry, 6 to noon. So anything I move automatically adjusts. It tells me by doing that I broke a work time and time window constraint, and I also updated my overall cost. So the system is going to tell me any changes I make, what the cost impact of that is, what the service impact is, and what the new schedule would be based upon those changes. If I don't like it, I can just put it back to the way it was. I can do the same thing by going in with the system and grabbing stops, just dragging and dropping them in a manifest. Notice how quickly it recalculated the routes, updated the ETAs, shows me my violations, shows me the new cost. That's $28.58. If I hit undo, it was $25.93. So it's $260 to move those stops. I have the ability to, in many cases, you're going to find that your customers they download, they build routes, but then they have these orders that are going to come in late. I have the ability to have the system come in and tell me where the best place to put those late orders are. So the system will come back and tell me, In this case, I've taken a North Pacific truck and said, is there another place for this? I don't want it on this route. I want to put it someplace else. It says, well, I can actually put it on Route 2, Stop 11, for $8.36. I can put it on Route 9, Stop 16, for $18.09. If you look down below, actually the second cheapest route was Route 6, Stop number 14. You're going to cause a capacity violation. In other words, you're over capacity. But you could have done that for only $11.35. So as late orders come in, the system will automatically give the user, it'll tell them where the best spot to put those orders are, what the cost impact is going to be by putting them on those routes. It'll slot them, update the schedule, and we can push the information back. From a visual display perspective, we have the ability to tell the system whether or not we want to see those lines via straight lines or whether we'd prefer to see them actually following the roads.
Chinese food.
If we look at as we zoom in, we're going to get more and more detail. See what the route physically looks like. Including getting the turn-by-turn driving instructions. So from this point, we've taken the customer's orders. We've brought them in. The system's built and optimized all the routes based upon all those orders. We're then going to tell the system we want to export. It's going to push the information back to Epicor. So you can start your workflow process around picking and billing and all the other things that are required as part of the vacuum process after the routes or the trips have been created. We also have the ability to add dispatching, as I alluded to earlier. So at this point, you would say, I want to dispatch it. So I hit File and Send a Dispatch. That's going to be a web-based platform, which I've got pulled up here. You can see I have a couple of customer sites. I show Kellogg's just so you can see what the branding looks like. I've got a couple of different ways I could come into this. If I type in order tracking, that information allows me to type in my order. So think of FedEx or UPS tracking, where you physically go and you type the order number in, and they tell you when your delivery is. The difference is we'll actually tell you the ETA. If I'm on the company side, I can actually go into the company portal and drill in and see a lot more details around what the deliveries look like. So if I go here, the first thing I notice is I came in and I landed at my dashboard. And my dashboard is kind of my heads up. It tells me everything about all the routes that are being created. So I've got 14 total routes. There's only one that's completed so far. There's 3 that are delayed. There's 11 that are active, and then I've got 3 that have not been taken yet. In other words, the driver has not checked that route out yet. We've not dispatched that route to a driver. I can see how many stops I've got completed, what my delays look like. If I take a look at the numbers over here on the right, these numbers tell me how late I'm running. So this route's running 169 minutes late. This route's 39 minutes. This route's 36 minutes. So based on where they are right now, we know that they're running late on their deliveries. Now if I click on an individual route, I can see details of what's actually happening. So when we were in the routing system, you notice that I had information around what my plan was. So the plan was I was going to start at 8. I depart at 8:15. I get to the first stop at Huntington Beach at 8:29. I'm there for 30 minutes. I get to the next stop at 9:09, so forth and so on for the rest of the day. So this is a route that starts at 8 and is supposed to end at 12:15. If I look at the actual, what you can see is the route actually started at 7:31, so he started 30 minutes earlier, 45 minutes really, earlier than what we originally planned. He left and immediately had an unscheduled stop. And I know it's an unplanned stop because I know the list of stops they were supposed to do for today. I also have my arrive and departs at each individual stop. So what we're saying is that based on the fact that he arrived here, or he departed at 9:20, we've updated our ETAs for all of our other stops. So he's running ahead, basically 50 minutes, 9:59 to 9:09. So we've reforecast the ETAs to 10:15. So if I was City of Laguna Beach and I went and did an order search right now, I would see 11:15, not my original ETA. If I zoom in, I can see what the route physically looked like. So we can see he left the terminal. There's that stop where he had an unscheduled stop from 7:32 to 7:37. And then you can see the path that we expected him to go. He was going to go deliver stop number 1, 2. He's at 3 right now. So there's the planned path. There's how he actually went. The black's what he actually did. The green's the planned path. So for here, we can obviously see for whatever reason it looks like he got lost. Because instead of getting off on Euclid Street, he actually went up and around and over Garden Grove Boulevard, had to do a U-turn to get back to that account. Because this is enterprise-wide visibility, depending upon the user, I'm going to have access to different pieces of information. So I've got reports for things like account history, cost analysis, driver performance, so actual versus planned miles, actual versus planned hours, stop times. Basically all my KPIs and metrics that I have for running my fleet, we're going to be able to report on all that information. If I'm customer service, what I want to be able to do is just go search on an order. So if I get a call and it's City of Laguna Beach, I could just type in Laguna. And there's the City of Laguna Beach. Current ETA is 10:15. So if I'm in customer service, I don't have to have 5 calls to figure out where we're at from a delivery perspective. Where I call the dispatcher calls the driver calls him back, he calls the dispatcher, then calls back customer service calls the customer. I could have started by having the customer automatically get an email or a text message. The customer could have went online and looked that order up themselves. They call customer service immediately has visibility to what the current updated schedule is based on where the truck's at. And they can also run things like, let's say Laguna Beach says, every time you show up, you're late. I can run an account history report to see every time I've been there, what time I planned to be there, what time I actually got there, was I in the time window, what's my on-time delivery percentage, all that information. And we can control who sees all that based upon their user roles and rights. We can also control from the dispatch side how much detail they can drill in. So I may not want customer service to be able to drill in and actually see physically where my trucks are right now. So from a dispatch perspective, we have the ability to take a full life cycle all the way from an order to getting it routed, getting it assigned, getting it dispatched, tracking it, and then finally reporting on it. So with that, I'm going to go back talk a little bit about who our target markets are. Who can we work on together? If we talk about our daily routing for fixed and dynamic, fundamentally we're looking for manufacturing, direct store delivery, any type of final mile multi-stop distribution arrangement. Oops, I'm not sure what just happened. I clicked on them. They're going to use it either for daily dynamic routing, which is the best fit for a changing customer base, when who or how much gets delivered. We talked about in a more static environment, we're talking about fixed routes with daily changes. So we'll use the system to generate those optimized static schedules, and then we'll download those actual orders on a daily basis to handle the changes. If we think about those different types of businesses, we've got both local and over-the-road multi-day deliveries. So it could be local delivery, so final mile, think 20 stops, 30 stops a truck, delivering a very tight geography. It could be over the road using common carriers, so long haul, one way, using a common carrier. So we're going to do load consolidation for that as well. The key in terms of the differentiator of whether or not the products mix is a fit is if they're running about 10 plus routes per day and doing multi-stop trips.